Hey everybody, it's Lloyd with Perfect Crust Pizza Liners and Incredible Bags. Super happy today to be joined by the one and only Rob DiNapoli, DiNapoli Tomato Products. The Bianco DiNapoli line is well known and loved in the pizza industry. And it's now the end of July, a very, very busy time. I'm really glad that he made a few minutes to talk with us because it's tomato time. Hey Rob, how are you?
I'm good, Lloyd. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. It's great to see your face. We messaged back and forth quite a bit, but I know that this is kind of a crazy time. I thought of you the other day because I was driving on Interstate 5 in the Sacramento Valley, saw the tomato trucks going down the road, just full of ripe tomatoes, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's that time of year. The tomato, canned tomato, especially crop, is kind of a crazy, crazy business, and that kind of all of the activity is in one part of the year. So how are things going for you?
Well, things are going okay. We've been running now. The organic started up on just after July 4th, and actually wrapped up at the northern facility. They're wrapped up on the organic crop, just getting started with the pear tomatoes on the conventional side. It's going okay, but we always say the tomatoes, they have 9 lives. We don't know what, we think one is gone and another pops up. It's an interesting 100 days, 90 to 100 days in which our pack is being produced and canned and cooled and stored in a warehouse. So yeah, it is a hectic 3 months.
Yeah, for those of us who live in California and have been through the Central Valley, the sight of those trucks with the tubs full of tomatoes and seeing the tomatoes in the gutter are a regular summer thing for some people who maybe aren't from that part of the country. I'm going to try to share a quick video off the internet that just kind of shows kind of the harvest process and how that goes, and maybe it'll be a good way for people to get some idea of kind of what happens.
Sure.
Okie dokie, let's go here. It's a drone shot and it'll back up and you can kind of tell us what's going on.
Yeah, aren't those drones wonderful? Look at that. What a shot. Yeah, that's a typical harvester. It's as you can see, it continues the harvest even during the switch of the gondolas. Each of those gondolas is about 25 tons, 50,000 pounds of tomatoes. That used to take an acre to fill up one of those. Now with the advent of better processing of the seeds and the hybrids, they're getting 2 of those gondolas, 2 truckloads for every acre of tomatoes that is planted. So our yields out in the field have almost doubled in the last 10 years. It does take the whole plant and cut it off. That's because early 1970s, they developed a determinable variety that means that 90% of the tomatoes are red and harvestable at the same time, unlike most seeds that we grow in our backyard that last until November and we go out and keep picking them. The varieties now are bred so that they're mostly ripe during a short harvest period, which could be about 7 days window in which the grower has to get out there and harvest his tomatoes. There is a machine there that will kick out some of the green, but it's actually very small. And then in the plant, of course, we've got machines that will color sort and kick out the greens as well. But you can see there's very little that's green, unlike if you went out in your backyard and harvest your tomatoes that you're growing at home. So it's very unique. Ingenuity, California ingenuity. All this was done at UC Davis during the early 60s and kind of culminated in the early 70s when they really perfected the gondolas, the transportation, the varieties that could withstand being at the bottom of one of those with 10,000 pounds of tomatoes on top of you, and could withstand the trip into the cannery. All those loads will be graded at the cannery. They'll be graded for the sugar content, the amount of green material other than tomatoes, things like sticks, stones. If there's any mold, sometimes after a winter or a summer rain, we'll get mold in 5 or 6 days. All of this is work to the advantage of California, though, in which we don't have any rain during, typically, we don't have any rain during the harvest season. So that enabled California to, as the years went by, to gain a stronger foothold against the rest of the United States and other countries that had intermittent rain and weren't able to take advantage of harvesting and the seed varieties that we're now using for higher yields.
So when we talk about the thing about canned tomatoes, and I mean, certainly growing up, and there was a period that I think canned food in general had a real bad rap. But really for tomatoes, I mean, it's literally picked at the peak of ripeness. I didn't realize how short that window is.
Yeah.
And so from the time that those tomatoes are going from the harvester into the truck, how long is it till it's at the cannery, and then how long before it's canned?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. I'm old enough to know what, the days when some of the growers used to grow the same varieties for fresh and for canned. And that was now almost 50 years ago. But, it's really interesting because it's changed. And I think the harvested tomatoes are getting processed much faster than they were 50 years ago. And conversely, the fresh market tomatoes, because of the propensity to pick them green and store them and gas them shortly before market, I think they've gotten even further apart. In other words, the typical fresh tomato is poorer than it was 50 years ago, and I think the canned product is actually better because when I was younger, we were in San Jose, California. It was the closest fields were probably 70 miles away from our cannery. Now they're normally within 40 to 50 miles of the cannery. So that's about an hour drive into the cannery, maybe an hour as they go through the process of getting graded and they drop the trailer there in the yard, and then they're hustled into the cannery. So I would say within probably 4 hours, 4 to maybe 6 hours would be the window in which they're harvested and they are in the can, cooled and ready for the storage in the warehouse or labeling and shipping. So yeah, really 4 to 6 hours. And those tomatoes, as you could see, they were dead ripe when they were picked.
Right.
Unlike the green tomatoes that we're getting in the supermarket most of the time. I'll exclude the farmer's market, and occasionally in the middle of the summer, you get a supermarket that will have vine ripened tomatoes. That's something less than $3 a pound. Now, in these cases, these are about 2 cents a pound, those tomatoes in the field. So, again, modern technology, the breeding of the tomatoes, the harvesting, the transportation has all driven that cost down. So 3 cents versus $3, you can see the efficiencies that California tomatoes provide the pizzerias and the people that are buying those tomatoes.
So there's all this activity in a real condensed time period. I mean, for the year, you're harvesting and canning, kind of like how do you project what your needs are for, let's say specifically to the pizza industry? You have several different products, right? In terms of crushed tomatoes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you have to get this product in the can and make some decisions along the way now that'll affect your stock at the end of the year.
Yes, and if you had some of our customers on the line, they might say I'm doing a very poor job of that. We did run out of 2 items, of which I apologize for. We do have a YouTube video that tries to show you some other products that will substitute. But yeah, it's tricky with even with the Bianco DiNapoli, and only I think we have 8 SKUs, 8 individual stock keeping units. It's still difficult at this day to predict what our needs are for those 8 units. And I think I likened it to, if you're a pizzeria trying to figure out how much pineapple and pepperoni cheese and peppers you're going to buy for the next year and be accurate. It's pretty challenging, but we do the best we can. We often inquire with our distributors, what are you going to need? And then we're jockeying it around. But we have crush, we have whole, and we have crush and puree now. And unfortunately, some of our operators have had to switch to one of those items and away from others that we're short on. We are back in production. We have everything. We're ready to ship. So Those of you that have been out of our hole or our rustic crush, it's now available. And thank you for your patience.
So putting up a picture of you and Chris in the field that I think is from your website. So it goes back a ways.
It is, and if you can tell by that phone hanging on my belt, it's a few years old. I remember that as gunslingers with the first round of flip phones. That's in 2009. That was our first year together out in the field. I smile because it was just such a wonderful experience to get to know Chris and go out and meet. We had Cliff Fong was our grower up in the north, and it all came together sort of spontaneously because those tomatoes, those pear-shaped tomatoes, were organically grown, and Cliff Fong really didn't have a good home for them. And Chris and I had been talking for a couple of years, let's do something special. And we got a call about 4 months before this picture was taken, and my good friend that was running the cannery up there said, hey, there's a field of tomatoes. It's 120 acres. Why don't you come up and look at it? I called Chris up. And Chris said, it was getting close to the summertime. He said, I've been suffering from this childhood asthma for many years. I think the stars have lined up. I'm going to teach somebody how to make pizza, and I'm going to travel up there with you, and we're going to get this done. And so this was early August, and so he was out there with me, and we had a wonderful time. Our intention was really just to pack for him, a little special pack for his pizzeria. He had a few extra cases left over. I said, well, Chris, what am I gonna do with these extra cases? And he wrote down on a piece of brown paper bag the name of 6 famous chefs and with their cell phone numbers. And said, well, why don't you call them up? Well, first one was Alice Waters, at Chez Panay's. And next was Mario Batali, and it was like down the list. What am I, gonna call these people up? And I called him up, and without exception was like, hey, I said, you want me to send you a sample? Said, look, if Chris says it's good, then, just here's the number of my distributor, get started with this. So it was a wonderful experience, and one I never thought I'd see after I was almost 50 years old there and thought I'd seen everything in the tomato business until I met Chris, and we started this organic line, and it's put me in touch with so many great, passionate pizzerias across the United States. It was like an awakening for me. Previously, I was really just dealing with distributors, mostly private label, big contract packs with Domino's and Little Caesars. And I thought I knew about pizza sauce, but I really hadn't met too many too many pizza makers. And my world changed after the start of this pack.
So on the organic side, has that been growing since you started? And is it constrained either by the growers, the production capability, or by demand?
Really not by demand. It has been growing, although, it's still a relatively small business. But those that are in it are extremely passionate.
Yes.
And that is the pizza makers, the pasta makers, the home, what we call like a prosumer, just like
Yes.
people at home that are now doing pop-ups and, are extremely passionate. It's growing. The constraints now are both, with the tomatoes and the processing capability. You've got challenges on both sides, and to be a processor and process organic tomatoes, you have to stop your production, you have to clean up, you have to hire a firm to come in and inspect, and time is money in the cannery. We're only there for 100 days, and you miss a day or two switching over from organics to conventional and vice versa. It's time consuming and challenging. On the grower end, there's just a whole bunch of things that are challenging when you can't use pesticides and herbicides, and sometimes they pop up, days before harvest. The beetles will come in and start, molesting your crop, and there's really not much you can do, besides go out there and harvest maybe early, or there's a number of challenges that have kept the yield down and the price up. So unfortunately, it's almost twice as much for us to buy the organic tomatoes as the conventional, and then there are the processing limitations.
Right.
So it's been challenging.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I know that you're in the middle of a busy time, but thought of you as I saw those trucks rolling down the road. Wanted to check in and see how things are going.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's too early to tell kind of what your overall crop numbers are. But assume and pray that, we'll have a good year, and the weather gods will continue to smile on us.
We're looking for that ninth life on the tomatoes. We're down about 30% for the first third of the season, and we're really hoping that, they surprise us and come back strong. But Lloyd, thank you for having me and allowing me to, show a little bit of our life here on the canning tomato side. We appreciate what you're doing and spreading the word, about pizza and good ingredients and what we're all up to help the community grow.
Yep, same here. Same right back at you. I think we share just a deep love for the pizza industry and the many people we've gotten to know through it. And look forward to seeing you soon. And thank you again.
Will you be at the Pizza Expo?
Yes, I will.
Okay, good. We'll see you there, Lloyd.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Rob.
Okay, you're welcome.